I would now like to declare the Scenic Rim Regional Council ordinary meeting for Wednesday the 30th October 2024 now open. And with that, acknowledge the traditional custodians on the lands that we meet and pay respects to elders past, present and future. I believe we have full attendance today and there are no apologies, and I would now like to call upon Reverend Dr. J. Chol Cook from the Scenic Rim Uniting Church to lead us in prayers. Dr. J. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Over to you, Reverend.
Thank you. Okay, let us pray together. Our Lord just says in the book of Matthew chapter 14 verse 27, "Take courage, it is I, do not be afraid." Almighty God, thank you for bringing us together today. Grant us confidence and help us overcome our fears. Mighty God, I pray for our community, the Scenic Rim region. Help our neighbors know you and share your grace and love through our Lord Jesus Christ. May we be good stewards of your love for our neighbors. Help us learn from our community and make it a place where all are welcome. Lord, I lift our community of Go Desert and the Scenic Rim region to you. Bless our mayor, Tom Sharp, as well as all the leaders and workers of the Scenic Rim Regional Council. Grant them wisdom to make sound decisions and govern with love, grace, justice, and mercy. Help them act in the best interests of all people. Mighty God, I ask for your hand in our community to help those facing difficulties. Enable us to support those in need. May we live and work to the glory of God, no matter where we go or what we do. Thank you for all our blessings, Lord. We pray this in the name of our Lord, Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 Reverend, thank you very much for your prayers and your wisdom and the work that you do in our region, and we bid you the best for the day.
Thank you so much. Blessings on you. Bless you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. I now turn to public question time and hand it over to the CEO, who has a number of questions for today's meeting.
Through Mr. Mayor, there is a list of questions from Mr. Nigel Wastel, which I'll respond to and read out the letter. Dear Mr. Wastel, thank you for your recent correspondence and submission of a question to be posed during the public question time at Council's ordinary meeting on the 30th of October 2024. In response to your inquiry, Council advice is as follows. Question: when was the last time Council did a compliance check on the water extractors to ensure that they are keeping to their limits? Response: Council is not aware of any recent concerns that would warrant compliance checks of water extraction. However, any further detailed information concerning non-compliance would be welcome. Next question. What is the result of the check if applicable? The response, please refer to the response in the previous question. Next question. In this term of Council, how often will compliance checks be conducted on these 4 commercial water extractors? Response. The primary responsibility for compliance rests with the operators of a development. In practical terms, Council resources limit opportunities to conduct proactive inspections of developments generally, including water extractors. While inspections are not carried out on a scheduled basis, they are conducted when concerns exist about compliance. Again, should there be any specific information or concerns about the development, any development, please provide this feedback back to Council. Should you wish to provide additional information or would like to discuss the matter further, please do not hesitate to contact myself.
Thank you, CEO. I now move on to declarations of prescribed or declarable conflicts of interest by members.
Thank you, Chair. As previously advised to the CEO, I have a declarable conflict of interest in item 11.4, the 2024-2025 Scenic Rim Community Grants Program, Round 1, Minor and Major Grants, and I'll expand on that conflict when we get to that item. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And now item number 7, just on announcements and mayoral minutes. There is one today. If you give me a moment, please. I'd like to seek Council's indulgence to consider a motion dealing with the circumstance of the events of last Saturday and the potential of those events to enhance the assets of this regional council and its people. Do I have your indulgence? Thank you. I move from the Chair that on behalf of Scenic Rim Regional Council, we extend the warmest congratulations to our state member, Mr. John Krause MP, particularly as it appears he has achieved an outright victory on his primary vote alone. We extend also our good wishes to the new Premier, the Honourable David Crisafulli MP, who achieved a remarkable victory of possibly 55 seats, while only requiring 49 to form government. Secondly, that an invitation be extended forthwith to our state member and the Premier to jointly visit our region at the earliest possible opportunity to assess for themselves 30 years of neglect of this region's assets, being and not limited to water, energy and main roads, and the disadvantage this neglect has wrought upon its constituency, such as the trucking of water into Canungra or out of Tamborine Mountain, the water infrastructure required for the Worrell Valley to significantly increase agricultural output for this region and the GDP for this state. Both energy and water infrastructure to the Bromwellton SDA, enabling investment in this region, providing local jobs as a long-awaited economic driver, not only for the region, but both the state and the nation. Lastly, the vital attention needed for our main roads, focusing on both the Mount Lindesay Highway and Route 90, alleviating the ever-increasing congestion in Bedesset and Canungra, coupled with the increasing safety issues that also extends itself to the Coulson-Boona-Bedesset intersection. The purpose of this visit is not simply to draw attention to the neglect or seek a rectification of these needs, but to draw a line under the lost opportunities which litter our history over the last 30 years. Could I call upon the seconder? Councillor Moriarty. Thank you. I'll talk very briefly to the motion. I think it's every single member sitting at this table is well aware of the issues that have been raised here today, and there are many more. And the people have been in discussions. We've talked till we're blue in the face about these issues, and the members themselves, again, have been advocating and as best as possible over a number of years with little action to come forward. It is now time, and I believe the opportunity will not be greater with a change of government to address that inaction. Is there anyone wishing to talk against the motion? You wish to talk to the motion?
To motion, please, Mayor, and if I could just correct you on one thing, if I may.
Certainly.
It's 47 seats to give a majority, not 49. I'm sorry to do that to you, Mayor. But
Thank you for that correction.
but I could, while I'm talking, if I can echo your sentiments. It is great, and I hope we do get a lot more services here than what we have. It's been as a stalemate here for some time, and I look forward to, like you, to working with our local member and the new government in trying to get some of those services upgraded, whether they be roads or whatever.
Thank you, councillor. With that said, I'll put the motion to the floor. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. And now turn to item number 8 and reception of deputations by appointment, presentations of petitions. I believe there is one today.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a petition today to present to the council. The petition reads, petition against the development at 63 Bunburra Road, Dugandan. To Scenic Rim Regional elected councillors and the council planning department. Subject, opposition to the development of a transport depot at 63 Bunburra Road, Dugandan, Queensland 4310. We, the undersigned residents of Bunburra, Dugandan, and other concerned local residents, express our strong concern regarding the ongoing development at 63 Bunburra Road, Dugandan. The site is being developed as a transport depot, which will also operate as earth-moving business, and it is situated in a rural zone with residential housing in close proximity. Key concerns: 1. Non-compliance with development standards. It was observed that on at least 17th of September 2024, there was more than 4 heavy vehicles plus earth-moving equipment on site, exceeding the threshold for acceptable developments, which is limited to 4 vehicles. Furthermore, the site's area of 6.9 hectares is below the 10 hectare minimum required for code accessible development. 2. Lack of planning approval. The development commenced without the necessary planning approvals, which undermines the planning scheme and bypasses community consultation. 3. Adverse impacts on the community. The industrial nature of this site is inconsistent with the rural character of our community and could give negative effects to local home-based businesses and the overall peace rural atmosphere we strive to maintain. We request that the council hold any further approvals for this development, whether as an accessible development or a material change of use, until proper community consultation has occurred and all concerns have been addressed. This request aligns with the council's commitment detailed in the Scenic Rim Community Plan 2011 to 2016, which states, Council will directly consider the expectations of the community in its decision-making processes, and the entire community has a shared responsibility to remind Council when it loses focus or strays from the desired path. We appreciate your immediate attention to the matter and look forward to a resolution that respects the interest of the Bunburra community. That's the entire petition, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. You're happy to, well, you're tabling that as a motion.
Yes. Yep.
You're happy? We need the motion then, formally.
Well, the motion would read that I present this to the petition to the council. Sharon, what has it got to say? Just petition to table.
To receive and refer to the CEO
To receive
for
and
a
note.
report.
Even though, yep.
Is that the intention on the screen?
Where is it? Yep. So I'll remove the motion that 1, council receive the petition, and 2, council refer to the petition to the Chief Executive Officer for a report to be brought back to council.
Thank you, councillor. Seconder to the motion, councillor Sanders. You wish to talk to your motion?
No, I think I've said enough.
Anyone wishing to talk against the motion? I put it to the floor. Those in favour? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Now move to the confirmation of the minutes, and I call upon someone from the floor to move the minutes from the ordinary meeting for the 25th of September 2024.
I'm happy to move that the minutes of the ordinary meeting, 25th of September 2024, are a true and correct copy, true and correct reflection of the meeting.
Thank you. A seconder? Councillor Cryer? You wish to talk to your motion, Councillor Sanders?
No, thank you.
Anyone talk against? I put it in to the floor. Those in favour? Motion carried unanimously. Now call upon someone to move in relation to the special meeting on the 9th of October, minutes of the special meeting on the 9th of October 2024. Councillor McInnes. Seconded. Do you want him to read the motion?
Someone should.
Councillor McInnes, would you mind reading the motion?
Yes, recommendation that the motion is that the minutes of the special meeting held on the 9th of October 2024 be adopted.
Thank you. The seconder, Councillor Hay. You wish to talk further, Councillor McInnes?
No.
Anyone
I'm right,
against?
thanks, Mayor.
Then I put it to the floor. Those in favour? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Just checking with the members, is there any business arising from the previous minutes? Nothing scheduled. We'll now move to item 11.1 and I call upon Councillor Moriarty to introduce that item.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to introduce item 11.1, councillor representation for the Council of Mayors South East Queensland Leveraging 2032 Working Group. Each member of council of the Council of Mayors South East Queensland was recently invited to nominate a council representative and a proxy for the Council of Mayors SEQ Leveraging 2032 Working Group. It's anticipated that this representation will be required for the remainder of the current term of council. It's obviously in the region's best interest to have a representative on that committee as we work towards the 2032 Brisbane Olympic Games, and I'm happy to support the recommendation as presented. And I move that one, council appoint Mayor Councillor Tom Sharp as its representative to the Council of Mayors SEQ Leveraging 2032 Working Group for the remainder of the current term of council. Council appoint the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Duncan McInnes, as a proxy for the Mayor, and three, council authorise payment of all reasonable costs incurred by the councillor representative in relation to attendance at meetings.
I accept the nomination. Councillor McInnes?
Yes, I accept
Accept
that
as proxy.
nomination.
Could I seek a seconder to the motion? Councillor Hay? Councillor Moriarty, you wish to talk to the motion?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Anyone?
Can I
Councillor
speak?
Sanders?
Can I speak for the motion, please, if that's okay? I just wanted to mention that as a councillor, when we've recently attended the Local Government Queensland Forum in Brisbane, one of the items that was continually discussed was that councils are often left out of discussions, and often this can mean financial or other negative impacts on us. The fact that this council has been asked to nominate councillors to the Council of Mayors to allow engagement and collaboration on matters related to the Brisbane 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games is to be recognised for its importance. Scenic Rim Regional Council will want to engage to discuss a range of legacy actions and to ensure our priorities are clearly identified and advocated for with the organising committee for the Games, the Queensland Government and the Australian Government. So I endorse the nomination of the Mayor Tom Sharp and Deputy Mayor Councillor McInnes as proxy. But as a councillor, I believe this is a very positive move and very good for our region, and this may hopefully provide us with some fantastic legacy infrastructure for sporting events that would allow us to grow our reputation as a place to play and stay.
Thank you, Councillor. Your comments are well appreciated, and obviously we've got off to a very big head start with the nomination for Wyalong for the rowing in the 2032 Olympics and Paralympics. Anyone wish to talk against the motion? Then I put it to the floor. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And now I call upon Councillor Cryer to introduce item 11.2.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to introduce report item 11.2, Draft Annual Report 2023 to 2024. I take the report as read. Council has prepared the draft annual report for 2023-2024 in accordance with the legislative requirements of the Local Government Act 2009 LGA under section 104(5)(b)(3), which includes documents of financial accountability and is in accordance with the current best practice in reporting. The report not only includes all prescribed content but also provides a comprehensive and balanced account of Council's progress towards implementing the Scenic Rim 2026 Corporate Plan and 2023-2024 Operational Plan. The very comprehensive content of the draft annual report has been reviewed by the Queensland Audit Office and in order to comply with legislative requirements must be adopted by the 15th of November 2024 and published on Council's website within 2 weeks of adoption. So in that light, I now move the motion that 1, Council adopt the Scenic Rim Regional Council Annual Report 2023 to 2024. 2, Council note the general purpose financial statements for the year ended 30th of June 2024. And 3, Council delegate to the Chief Executive Officer the power to make minor grammatical and formatting changes to the Scenic Rim Regional Council Annual Report 2023 to 2024 if required, after its adoption by Council and prior to publishing the document for public access. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Seconded to the motion. Councillor Hay. Councillor Sanders.
Can I speak to the motion, please?
Certainly.
I wanted to congratulate the staff. They've done a wonderful job and they take such pride in completing a document such as this. The councillors have all reviewed the document and have asked many questions of the staff to ensure that the information is correct. I wanted to note that the staff are so passionate and enthusiastic about doing these accurate type of reports. Now, the report includes things such as our success indicators, our progress on achieving our organisational goals, how we deliver on our operational plan, the services, some of the services that we provide. And we're a little council and we are achieving great things for our community.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to talk against the motion? Councillor Cryer, I'll just give you the opportunity to talk finally on your motion, if you so wish.
No, thank you, Chair. I think it's pretty self-explanatory but I do concur with Councillor Sanders that it is a great document. It's very comprehensive and quite massive in its entirety. So it's very good for the Scenic Rim Regional Council.
Thank you, Councillor. With that, I then I put it to the floor. Those in favour? That motion carried unanimously. Thank you. I now call upon Councillor Sanders to introduce item 11.3.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the Portfolio Councillor for Tourism and Events, I have pleasure in introducing the report 11.3, Destination Scenic Rim Partnership Update. I know that all of our diligent councillors have read the report. We've been very lucky to have Destination Scenic Rim present their progress on their KPIs to a councillor workshop, and as per the officer's recommendation, I hereby move the following motion. 1. Council acknowledge the progress made by Destination Scenic Rim to date in representing the interests of the region's tourism operators and delivery of the Destination Scenic Rim business plan for 2023 to 2024. And 2, Council endorse the continued engagement of Destination Scenic Rim under a partnership agreement for the delivery of initiatives outlined in the Destination Scenic Rim business plan 2024 to 2025.
Thank you, Councillor. Call upon a seconder. Councillor Moriarty, thank you. Councillor Sanders, do you wish to address your motion?
Yes, please. Thank you. Destination Scenic Rim Incorporated is a membership-based representative body for tourism operators and has over 150 members. It is the voice of the region's tourism industry, and it plays an important advisory role to Council for the region's local tourism operators. They advocate on behalf of their members, they engage with stakeholders, they provide industry networking, training and support, as well as marketing and promoting members' products and services. Destination Scenic Rim works very hard to meet its obligations, which are in the business plan, and twice each financial year, they make a report to Council on delivery and outcomes from the business plan. Council provides some funding via partnership agreement. I think this is a great initiative for tourism in the region.
Thank you, councillor. Anyone wishing to talk against the motion? With that, I then put it to the floor. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. I now turn to item 11.4. Before we do, we might just address the conflict of interest raised by Councillor Hay earlier today.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to declare that I have a declarable conflict of interest in that item, in that my partner Stuart Wright is a member of the executive of the Tamborine Mountain AH&I Society, which has been recommended for a grant of approval for $14,500 for the repainting of the showground pavilion on Tamborine Mountain. As he's a close associate, I will remove myself from the discussion and the vote. Thank you.
We don't. She's nominated to leave the room, so there's nothing further. Thank you, councillor. I call upon Councillor Cryer to introduce item 11.4.
Thank you, Chair. As Councillor for the portfolio of Community, Arts and Culture, I would like to introduce report item 11.4, 2024 to 2025 Scenic Rim Community Grants Program Round 1 for minor and major grants. I take the report as read. I'd just like to say a little bit. The aim of the Council's Community Grants Program is to provide assistance to local non-for-profit community groups and organisations who make a positive contribution to the quality of life in the Scenic Rim. This program includes Stream 1 for minor community grants for a maximum funding of $5,000 each, and Stream 2 for major community grants with a maximum funding of $20,000 each, for a total allocation to the program of $400,000. A total of 28 minor applications and 21 major applications were received for round 1, valued at approximately $418,000 in total. Just to note, there is only one major grant round each financial year. A rigorous selection process was then undertaken by Council's grant assessment panel, and all submitted applications were scored against the same criteria. As such, Council proposes to, within this report, to allocate $75,785.59 for the minors, plus $171,058 for the majors for round 1, leaving a balance of $153,156.41 for round 2 of the minor grants and Council's in-kind program of this amazing grants program. I now move the motion that 1. Council approve the allocations for minor grants in the amount of $75,785.59 for 21 projects, and for major grants in the amount of $171,058 for 11 projects under the Scenic Rim Community Grants Program 2024 to 2025 Round 1, representing a total of $246,843.59 for 32 projects outlined in the following tables. Now I'll just read the community group and followed by the project and then the amount recommended. So the first one is Beaudesert Chamber of Commerce Incorporated for a project of Beaudesert Community Christmas Carols and Markets in the Park. The amount is $3,600. Next is Beachmont Tennis Club Incorporated refurbish and painting of posts and rails of the tennis courts for $5,000. Boona District Kindergarten Incorporated, the project is technology replacement for $3,520.62. Boona Show Society Incorporated, replacement fridges for community catering, $4,766. Boona Soccer Club facilities upgrade for $5,000. Fassifern Field Naturalist Club Incorporated, wildlife surveillance, $2,712. Fassifern Lions Club, Calbar County Day and Charlie's Little Wishes Gala Ball, $4,900. Harrisville Women's Shed, Anglican Parish of Boona, Harrisville, Christmas Carols Evening, $3,000. Hayes Oval Incorporated, Ball Stop Nets, $4,159.80. Calbar Peace Memorial Baptist Church, that's the 2025 Australia Day Awards Ceremony. Oh, did I do? Yeah. Did I miss one there? Sorry. Hayes
No.
Oval.
You got that?
Oh, sorry. 2025 Australia Day Awards Ceremony and Community Breakfast, $4,837. Carrelvin Valley Mountain Bike Park Incorporated, purchase of equipment for maintenance, $2,980. Maroon School of Arts Incorporated, support equipment for $2,807.87. Raff Downey Swimming Club Incorporated.
Sorry, councillor. If you just go back one.
Sorry. Mount Alfred School of Arts Incorporated, purchase new kitchen equipment, $4,763. Raff Downing Swimming Club Incorporated, pool lifeguard and CPR training for volunteers, $792. Returned and Services League of Australia Queensland Branch, Calbar Sub-Branch Incorporated, Calbar RSL Sub-Branch New Office Door, $1,897. Tamborine Mountain Chamber of Commerce and Industry Scarecrow Festival 2024, $3,760.75. Tamborine Mountain Pickleball Association Incorporated, Enhanced Skills, $3,653.55. Tambourine Pony Club Incorporated, improving our competition and training surfaces, $5,000. Tambucan Memorial Hall Incorporated, new tables and chairs, $5,000. U3A Tambourine Mountain Incorporated, speakers for line dancing, $900. Zonta Club of Bow Desert Area Incorporated, DV awareness, high tea, carols in the park, community events, $2,736, with a total recommended $75,785.59. Now for the major community grants, the community group project and amount as follows. Kerry Memorial Hall Society Incorporated, Future Electrical Sustainability, WH&S Work Health and Safety Compliant Upgrades, $20,000. Bow Desert Meals on Wheels, Health and Safety Rectification, $10,800. Beach Mountain Association Incorporated, BMA, Beachmont Old School Site Lighting Fixtures and Lamp Upgrades, $18,412. Rotary Club of Boona Incorporated, Boona Community Pump Track, $19,985. Tambourine Equestrian Group Incorporated, amenities, building interior and exterior improvements, $20,000. Boona Activity Shed Incorporated, concrete path from activity shed to toilets, $4,800. Anglican Parish of Tambourine Mountain, St. Luke's Anglican Guild, Canungra, St. Luke's awning between the church and pavilion, $7,700. Tamrukan Memorial Hall Incorporated, upgrade long supper room, $18,086. Tambourine Mountain AH&I Society Incorporated, repainting of Showground Pavilion, $14,500. Tambourine Mountain Botanic Gardens Incorporated, repair of Hillside Viburnum Walk, $20,000. Mount Alfred School of Arts Incorporated, plumbing upgrade, $16,775, and the total recommended is $171,058. Two in the motion is council provide relevant feedback and advice to unsuccessful grant applicants to continue building capacity of the community sector. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. I now call upon a seconder for that motion. Councillor McGuinness. Councillor Cryer, you wish to talk to that motion?
No, I think I've said enough.
Well done. That was quite a bit to get through. Anyone wishing to talk against the motion?
No.
Councillor McGuinness,
For the motion, if there's no one against,
please.
Yeah, this is one of the really good things that council does, and it helps community groups no end. A lot of these groups wouldn't function if it wasn't for the help from council. And I'm glad that we do it. We've done it for many years and hopefully continue to do it. There are other bigger grants available for some groups through gambling grants, etc. But for a lot of those smaller ones, we come to the party and help them out so they can operate for the benefit of the community.
Agreed. Well said, councillor. Councillor Sanders, you wanted to? He did well. And additionally, these small amounts of money, a great proportion also stays in the community with local services and businesses. So there's a marginal economic boost there as well. It's one of those, I guess, good feeling motions to be able to do something highly visible, even though small, within the community. Thank you. I put it to the floor. Those in favour of the motion? Carried unanimously. We can now bring back Councillor Hay. Welcome back, Councillor Hay, and now call upon Councillor Hay to introduce item 11.5.
Thank you, Chair. It's my pleasure to, as the Divisional Counsel for Division 1 on Tambourine Mountain, to introduce item 11.5, Material Change of Use 24/011, Change Other Development Permit for Material Change of Use, Community Use, located at 154 to 172 Main Western Road, Tambourine Mountain, formerly described as Lot 1, RP 196436. I take the report as read. And I move the motion that Council receive and note the report titled Development Application MCU 24/011 for a change other development application for a development permit for a material change of use, community use, at 154 to 172 Main Western Road, Tambourine Mountain, Lot 1, RP 196436. 2, Council approve development application MCU 24/011 and grant a development permit for change other development application material change of use, community use, subject to the conditions contained in section recommended conditions of approval below. And 3, Council note that any subsequent requests for a negotiated decision notice and or further change applications to the approval MCU 24/011 will be processed via delegated authority where the changes would not significantly alter the original decision.
Thank you, Councillor. Call upon a seconder. Councillor Sanders. Councillor Hay, would you like to talk to your motion?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd like to say that it's good to see a proposed development which complements the current tourism offerings on Tambourine Mountain and which will provide a very different tourism attraction. The condition number 37 of the proposed conditions states that the day spa, massage rooms and wellbeing centre component of the previous approval is being revoked. So this is not simply a case of expanding an approval, it's changing an approval, doing away with some parts that were previously approved and adding a new use, which is the motorbike museum. Community concerns that were raised included the high visitation, potentially by members of the noisy motorbike brigade. But this is not a planning matter. This, if this eventuates, this is actually a police matter, not a council matter. It's also good to see an application which is in line with the planning scheme and seeks to modify an existing approved tourism use, which was approved right back to in 2014. And I commend this application to councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Anyone wishing to talk against the motion? Well, with that said, I then put the motion to the floor. Those in favour? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. I now turn to item 11.6 and call upon Councillor Moriarty to introduce that item.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to introduce item 11.6. Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to introduce item 11.6. I'll take the report as read. The item is entitled RAL 23/057 Development Application for Reconfiguring a lot, one lot into 15 lots, including balance lot at 182 Lamington National Park Road, Canungra, lot 212 on SP 119178. May I just seek some clarification before we progress any further? Do I need to move a motion and then we can have a discussion, or can we have a discussion and then move a motion?
No, you can raise some points of discussion before you raise your motion, councillor.
Thank you. Mayor, I'd just like to make some commentary about this development. I note that the development is code accessible, therefore has not been put out to public for submissions with regard to the development. I note that the development broadly falls within the planning scheme and that the certain conditions that have been applied to the development make the development acceptable under the planning scheme. Notwithstanding those observations, I'm also very aware, as you mentioned in your introductory motion to our state and state leader and local member John Krause and David Crisafulli, in noting the issues that have beset Canungra over a fairly long period of time, notably being State Route 90 travels straight through the middle of town and the associated traffic and parking issues that has raised. I know that it's not part of planning approval process, especially matters of the state, that we can vote against the development based on those things, but it is very much worth noting that those situations, those issues that have beset Canungra are only getting worse, and not just because of this development, but because of other developments to the north and west of the town, and the huge amount of traffic which now just travels straight through the centre of town, commuting to and from work on the Gold Coast, and also people who travel to and from the Gold Coast for leisure activities as well. It's a major issue. I'm somewhat heartened by the fact that our local member for the Scenic Rim, John Krause, in the Canungra Times just prior to the election, had a very prominent half-page advertisement saying that he has the right plan for Canungra. And that plan includes fixing Canungra congestion mess and getting main roads back on the job to deliver solutions. That would certainly be appreciated. His second point is that the planning for Canungra recognises that the many new homes already planned and the water issues that they bring need to be addressed. And again, it will be greatly appreciated if we have the support of our state member with the new government being formed at the state to progress those items as quickly as possible. I guess so those things are out of council's control. I guess the one issue that concerns me a little bit with this development is the fact that within the planning scheme and with their own planning scheme, there are statements to do, and they apply to rural residential developments in an urban zone, just as much as residential development. And there are statements such as contributes to an accessible and walkable community in urban areas and prioritise walking and cycling in the future facilitation of public transport. The performance outcomes say things like provides a high level of internal accessibility and a high quality external connection for pedestrians and cyclists. That they create safe conditions for pedestrians, cyclists and vehicles for both day and night time usage. The outcomes we're striving to achieve are to establish a safe and walkable and permeable street network and provides efficient pedestrian and cycle access to a commercial, public transport, parks and community service areas. Given that the entrance to this estate, this development is approximately 1 kilometre only and lies inside the urban area to the nearest footpath into the township of Canungra, my concerns is there's no condition in this application for this development to contribute to our active transport network in the region. Now, given that after roads and traffic and water for Canungra, the third most requested item that people raise with me is they want active transport networks. They want, and this is not just Canungra, this is all around the region, but we're talking about Canungra now. What people want to be able to do, they want to be able to move around our communities, they want to be able to move around our townships and walk and cycle and jog and do all of those things, active transport, which we're supposed to support, and yet we're having these developments which are within a reasonably close proximity to town in the urban zone, will eventually be connected to the town by other developments as they occur closer to town, and yet we're not insisting that we have active transport networks as part of development applications. That is my concern. So for that reason, I'm unable to support this application at this time.
Thank you, Councillor. With that in mind, you've introduced the item, you've addressed the item. We need to put forward a recommendation. Councillor Hay, I've noted you've been down as Councillor of Introduction. Did you have a statement to make in relation to this?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I concur with Councillor Moriarty's comments. I just find that this development application, whilst meeting most of the requirements of the planning scheme, is yet another example where a development is proposed where the infrastructure isn't in place to support it. And given that we have the ability to impose a condition, as far as I understand it, to stipulate that a footpath should be supplied or installed at least at the entrance to this particular development, to link up with any future developments heading closer to the township. I'm not able to support this either. I have an additional concern in that I find it difficult to accept any further development which may have implications for Canungra Creek, which is theoretically the main water source for Canungra Township. And I'm also concerned that this particular property has all 3 levels of flood hazard on it, which then limits the developable area, so I won't be able to support this recommendation.
Do you have a question? The flood hazard overlay, do you have a question in relation to that, Councillor?
I think the report was self-explanatory, but quite often we only see a development application where there's one level of a flood overlay or hazard. In this case, this one has all three. Perhaps the General Manager may be able to provide some clarification on that as to what the implications are for having all three levels. Thank you.
Through the chair. Councillor, I assume you refer to the different colours on the map? Okay, so those different colours, you have red, yellow and green, refer to the, I suppose, the risk associated with the flood in that level. So the deeper and faster the water is, the more it tends towards the red, but as it gets shallower to the edge, it becomes orange and green as it gets shallower and slower. So effectively, the flood mapping will demonstrate those three levels pretty much in most areas as the contours of the land get shallower.
Councillor Moriarty introduced the item. I understand that you're not supporting the recommendation. There are a number of options before you. Are you proposing a motion in relation to any of the options?
Thank you, Mayor. If you're asking me to propose a motion, I will be moving option 2, that council receive and note the report titled Development Application RAL 23/057 for the reconfiguring of a lot. That's one lot into 15 lots, including a balanced lot at 182 Lamington National Park Road, Canungra, lot 212 on SP 119178, and 2, council refuse the development application RAL 23/057 for reconfiguring of a lot 1 into 15 lots, including balanced lot at 182 Lamington National Park Road, Canungra, lot 212 on SP 119178 on the specified grounds. Those grounds being the matters raised with regard to the planning scheme and the...
Just, if we could, just introduce the motion. We'll just talk.
More than happy. Just got
Stop at the motion on specified grounds.
Is that where it stops?
It is. Before we go any further, could I seek a seconder to the motion? Thank you, Councillor Hay. Councillor Moriarty, you spoke earlier to your motion, you spoke earlier to the subject, and I appreciate your concerns, but actually addressing the item, and I think you did suggest that it was a properly made submission. Could you talk do you wish to talk specifically to this motion now?
Thank you, Mayor. Other than to say, I don't believe that council have made, I won't say enough effort, but we've ignored the part of the planning scheme that requires the development to establish a safe, walkable and permeable street network that provides efficient pedestrian cycle access to commercial, public transport, parks and community service areas. I don't believe that's been addressed and is not evident in this application.
Anyone wish to talk against the motion?
Mayor, sorry. No, I was going to ask a question and just specifically on the point that Councillor Moriarty raises there. Have officers, or through the CEO, have officers looked at that, or did they consider the footpath, for using an old term that they like to call it, from there, or part of it, or for the developer to put some money towards building of that, accessible
community amenity.
Yeah.
Through the acting general manager.
Thank you for the question. Yes, it was considered. Being rural residential allotments, footpath connectivity is not necessarily required, simply because they're larger lots and they're generally transport orientated. So, they're more likely to have their own cars and whatever for transport. In a practical sense as well, the cost of a footpath into Canungra, other than directly out in front of the development, that cost will be borne by council, and that cost at the moment I think is in the vicinity, rough figures will be over $3 million to create a footpath into town, the shared cycleway.
Thank you. Councillor Sanders?
I can't believe I'm doing this, but I'm actually going to speak against the amendment or the motion that we've got at the moment. I've read about the cutting and the filling of the new lots to create, the building pads for the new houses, the internal roads and the stormwater and drainage system. I can see the compensatory earthwork envisaged for the floodplain below the defined flood level. I note that the safest site for building has been recognised and building envelopes have been included because of those flood hazard areas. The on-site drainage channel and adjacent water courses and the water resource catchments overlay code applies. I note that there's no water and sewerage for this development and all have tanks and HSTPs and disposal areas. I'd wonder if this one would be regarded as out of sequence, and if they held off for a few years, if they would possibly be part of the water grid. That's a question for another day. The proposed development generally complies with the requirements of the planning scheme. It doesn't raise any significant issues that cannot be addressed by reasonable and relevant conditions. This always gives me a quandary, because what are we going to do? Are we going to end up in court? Are we going to be fighting against something that we cannot fight against? I note Councillor Moriarty's arguments, absolutely, totally and completely. I just think that we're walking into something that we cannot defend in a court situation, and we don't want to open up our ratepayers to continued court action. It's extremely expensive. So I can't support Councillor Moriarty's motion or an amendment.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone wishing to talk in favour of the motion?
Yes, Mayor, I just...
Sorry, Councillor Moriarty, you've taken your...
Oh, I'm done, am I?
You get one shot. Anyone else wishing to talk to the motion? Councillor Hay.
Thank you. I'd just like to ask, is the potential for court action should we refuse this development application, is that even a consideration under the Planning Act?
Sorry, I got slightly distracted. Would you mind repeating that, Councillor? My apologies.
I'd just like to ask if the consideration of whether or not a refused development application may end up in the Planning and Environment Court on appeal, is that even a consideration under the Planning Act? I didn't think it was.
Through you, Mr Mayor, no, it isn't, but it is the role of staff to make council aware when there are likely to be liabilities stemming from a decision made within the chamber as such. I don't know if the GM, yeah. Sorry, explain which bit? Where council is likely to incur a cost, council officers will always make that apparent to the councillors, especially when there is consideration as to the likelihood of the project or the DA being approved. Being knocked back by council, but the developer will choose to come back. So we need to make you aware of those financial liabilities.
Thank you. Could I just ask, what stage are we at in the decision-making process with the number of days that remain for a decision to be made before this ends up a deemed refusal?
Being code-assessed will be deemed approval, and we're just about out of time. As in, I'm not sure the exact date. Rowena, do you have that?
Through the chair, the exact date I don't have, but it would be very shortly, in a week or two sort of thing.
Okay, following on from that, I'm just wondering if there's any appetite to defer this item to reconsider a condition about the provision of a footpath or not. If that takes us to the next council meeting, I'm assuming we'd be well and truly out of time. But is there any appetite to consider putting in a condition which requires a pedestrian crossing or not?
So just to respond to the first part, an extension was given to council to allow it to come to this meeting. That any further extension will be purely the prerogative of the applicant, not council.
Anyone wishing to talk against the motion? Councillor Moriarty, now I turn to you if you'd like to sum up your motion.
Thank you, Mayor. As I stated at the start, I understand that the development broadly complies with the planning scheme. My concern is purely about the fact the lack of infrastructure connected to the development to build our active transport network. It would seem a great opportunity. I note there's a significant cost being quoted. Not sure I'm seeing $3 million in a 1K footpath, but perhaps that's correct. And the issue for me is, I mean, if I'm the developer, honestly, if I'm doing that development in Canungra, the first thing I'm doing is I'm talking to the council and I'm saying, you know, what can we contribute? How can we make this a more attractive development? I mean, in my opinion, if I'm developing that land, I would want to put an active transport network, footpath, cycle path into town because it'll make the allotments more valuable, it'll make it a more attractive estate, a more attractive proposition. Why am I not talking to council and saying, look, you know, even a co-contribution, how can we get this across the line? How can we make the community a better place? I just don't understand the logic, if I'm being perfectly honest.
Thank you, Councillor. I should have spoken up before, but if I may, I'll just very quickly, I won't be supporting the motion, but I do fully support the councillor's views. I have full appreciation from where he is coming, but given the fact that it is an appropriately made application, I think there are, and given the size and the number of allotments, I think there are, based on what the councillor has said, there are times and days when you've got to pick your moments when you'll have that fight, and possibly this is not one of those occasions. I will put the motion to the floor. Those in favour? Those against? Certainly, so the call for division. Motion defeated. You want me to call them out? Yes, please. Certainly. Those in favour are Division 1 and Division 3. Those against were the Mayor, Division 2, Division 4, Division 5 and Division 6.
Can I put the original motion?
I now call upon someone to put forward the original recommendation.
I'll be happy to do that. Oh, you're right. I would defer to my learned friend beside me, but I'm happy to put the motion that 1. Council receive and note the report titled Development Application RAL 23/057 for reconfiguring of a one lot into 15 lots, including balanced lot at 182 Lamington National Park Road, Canungra, lot 212 on SP 119178. 2. Council approved development application RAL 23/057 for reconfiguring of a one lot into 15 lots, including balanced lot at 182 Lamington National Park Road, Canungra, lot 212 on SP 119178, subject to the proposed conditions of approval as detailed in the report. And 3. Council note that any subsequent requests for negotiated decision notice and or further change applications to the approval RAL 23/057 will be processed via delegated authority where the changes would not significantly alter the decision.
Thank you. Seek a seconder for the motion. Councillor Chalk. Thank you. Councillor Sanders, do you wish to talk to the motion?
I just might reiterate that I think there's a lot of feeling out in the community that council can stop a lot of developments, or if a development's coming up somewhere close to them, that, you know, that council can stop it. I think we've got options where we can approve with conditions, or we can refuse. We can certainly negotiate as much as we possibly can. I totally take on board Councillor Hay and Councillor Moriarty's points, and you can see that, you know, there's definitely concerns around the room. I just think we've got to be mindful of what positions we can, what we'll say, die in the ditch for, and what we can defend. And we may not like some things, and we have a process that we have to follow, and some rules in place, and sometimes things aren't as perfect as we'd like them. So I put this motion to council.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to talk against the motion?
Can I ask a question of
Certainly,
the General
Councillor.
Manager, please? Could you explain further the impact on Canungra Creek in regards to the wastewater dispersal for this development?
Okay. So in relation to the HSTP disposal areas? Yeah. Thank you. Okay. So that's been assessed as part of the application by the appropriate technical people. HSTP systems are standard and they need to meet plumbing codes. And as I say, it was assessed as part of it, the application. And I'm sorry, I'm not a wastewater expert myself. If you need further information, we would need to have someone appropriate to respond to that.
Councillor McGuinness.
Could I just ask the question in another way, if I may? Does the water from these properties, wastewater from here, have to remain on those properties? Individual properties.
Councillor Moriarty.
So when we, in relation to wastewater from HSTPs, yes. So they're strictly controlled where those systems can spray above ground. Household stormwater, overflow, whatever, would just continue on the natural path pre-development.
Thank you.
Mayor, I would like to seek some guarantees, I guess, for want of a better term. I would ask that we direct the CEO that, I'm not speaking against the motion, but is that all right if I do this here?
But are you proposing another motion, councillor?
I'm not proposing. Well, I could propose another motion.
Or are you seeking, is it a question or a statement, or are you seeking
It's a
an action?
request that we direct the CEO to direct council officers to develop a master plan for future planning around the Canungra Township, so we can avoid these sorts of situations again in the future. So we have our active transport network set in stone. Any future developments, and there's many on the horizon, address the issues that would have been raised today and other matters concerning lack of infrastructure for all of these developments. And furthermore, that we approach TMR, SEQ Water, or the state agencies, whether that's through our state member John Krause or directly, and inform them that any future developments in Canungra will be looked upon unfavourably by this council until such time as we get a firm commitment on funding with regard to a bypass for Canungra and a permanent water security.
Could we, councillor, is it possible to take that on board as a comment?
Sure. You take it how you like, but that's the point.
Yeah, because I was just going to say, point of order, can we finish our motion first and then maybe, add that as a later time? Yeah,
Well,
is that possible?
Certainly. If we can take that on board as a comment, and also in light of what was addressed in the mayoral minute today, and I think the issues at hand are well and truly understood and we acknowledge, but we do need to get to the matter of the actual item and address the recommendation. Is there anyone wish to talk against the motion? Anyone wishing to talk in favour of the motion?
I already have. Mr Mayor, do you want me to go again?
Would you like to, unless there's something additional you wish to sum up with?
No, I think I'll just say that I understand Councillor Moriarty's passion for his area, absolutely, and I just think some of these situations are difficult, and hopefully in the future we can work towards a better outcome.
Thank you, councillor. I'll now put the motion to the floor. Those in favour? Those against? The motion's carried. There'll be a call for a division, I dare say. So those in favour were Division 2, Mayor, Division 4, 5 and 6. Against was Division 1 and 3. Thank you. I now call upon Councillor McGuinness to introduce item 11.7.
Thanks, Mayor. I would like to introduce 11.7 RAL 23-046 development permit for reconfiguring of a lot 3 into 78 rural residential lots at 163 Tiviatville Road, Kelbar, lots 1, 2 and 5 on RP 20983. Just a bit about the proposal that's in front of us. The applicant is seeking a development permit for reconfiguration of lots 1, 2 and 5 on RP 20938 situated at 163 Tiviatville Road, Kelbar. The development involves subdividing the 3 into 78 lots. The report compiles the facts and circumstances for council to decide this application. The proposal development triggers impact assessment under the Scenic Rim Planning Scheme 2020 as amended 30th of June 23 due to the subject land not being identified as rural residential precinct. It is 4,000 square metres minimum area or a minimum lot size overlay map of OM-13 and the proposed average lot being below the minimum prescribed for a code application. The application is made under the Planning Act of 2016, which applies to development applications subject to impact assessment. The proposal has been assessed against the planning scheme and shaping SEQ 2023 and the council's various engineering requirements considered relevant. Based on this assessment, it is recommended that council approve the application subject to the imposition of reasonable and relevant conditions and for the reasons outlined in this report. Just before I read the recommendation, Mayor, I'd like to make a change to what had been presented, and just to, I'll go into the details of it, but that is to basically have the buffer area around the area going from 10 to 20 metres on each of those blocks, which is the responsibility of the new, and it's up there in red if councillors would like to read it. So a landscaping, provide a buffer landscaping of 20 metres as it says rather than the 10 metres that had been recommended. And down the bottom there, the buffer, turn around over here, my eyes will be better here, the buffer should be co-located with affluent irrigation areas and not impede their functionality. So bearing that in mind, I think it is amended condition, part of condition 29. I'll read the recommendation out now, Mayor, and that is that 1, council receive and note the report titled RAL 23-046 development application for reconfiguring a lot 3 into 78 rural residential lots at 163 Tiviatville Road, Kelbar, lot 1, 2 and 5 on RP 20983, and 2, council approve the development application RAL 23-046, subject to the recommended conditions of approval outlined in the report, despite the identified non-compliance of with 3.4.2 strategic outcomes urban areas. SO10 of the Scenic Rim Planning Scheme 2020 in consideration of the below relevant matters favouring approval. A planning scheme anomaly incorrectly identifies the subject land within the minimum lot size overlay map of OM-13.1 as rural subdivision precinct, rural 40 hectare precinct, and within the rural 40 hectare precinct on the strategic framework map SFN M-03 rural precinct plan. B, the subject land more appropriately aligns with the rural residential precinct 4,000 square metres minimum area of the minimum size overlay map OM-13.1, and C, in acknowledgement of the above, the development has otherwise demonstrated compliance with the relevant assessment benchmark and achieves a 3.4.2 strategic outcomes urban areas dash SO11 of the Scenic Rim Planning Scheme 2020, whereby 1, the development maintains a low density residential character and support a high level of residential amenity. The development is able to support a low density residential activities on large lots. That was number 2. And number 3, the lots are an adequate size to manage the cumulative effect of on-site wastewater treatment. And 3, council note that any subsequent requests for a negotiated decision notice and or change applications of the approval RAL 23-046 will be processed via delegated authority where the changes would not significantly alter the original decision. I so move, Mr. Mayor.
And Mr. Mayor, I just have a question on that, wondering whether we have to include.
Could we just hold for 1 sec, councillor? Thank you. Could we, with your amendment, proposed amendment, councillor, could we add that? Could you add that to your motion as part 4?
Yes, yeah, good point, Mayor. You're right. Yes, if we could. It's one of the conditions, but yeah. Along with a lot of other conditions there with it. I can. Do you want me to read that out again?
If you would, please. Sorry.
As bad as Councillor Cryer and Emma are talking. Thanks, Sharon. This is on condition 29 that I had written it out here, provide a buffer landscaping and from the 10 metres to the 20 metres. And note at the end the buffer should be co-located with effluent irrigation areas and not impede their functionality.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder to the motion, please? Councillor Sanders. Councillor McGuinness, would you like to talk to your motion?
Yes, Mayor, I will. It's this development has created quite a bit of interest in the area, and some for and some against. Yeah, quite a number of people against it. I have to admit, it is in rural residential area, and it is, and I concede that it is actually. A lot of the blocks are 3,000 square metres rather than the 4. We have approved quite a number of others that are 3,000 square metres, and I note that Lockyer Council actually are down to 2,000 square metres, which I think isn't a good thing for systems to be in the effluence there, but there are a number of developments approved already at 3,000 square metres. A bit like Canunga, Kalbar's growing quite a lot, and it's and some will say when's this development stopping, and some we can have control over and some we can't. I think it's hard to knock back an application, whether it be like this or elsewhere. Yeah, the shops will come and the infrastructure, the schools will. There were a number of comments made that the school's not big enough to handle any more growth. Well, that's not our department, but we will liaise with our local member and in the education department if there's bigger and more schools needed in the area. It's just one of those parts of progress that we have to do. But I take into account especially the bordering neighbours. It's different. It will be different to what it has been. We should mention that this was approved some 7 years ago, if my memory is right, for a retirement village, which would have had not a dissimilar number of units, sort of, that this will have on, all owned by one person, I concede, rather than 78 individual owners. But there is some flooding there. I think it's up to the developer to make sure that doesn't impede on it doesn't impede on the blocks where they are by the maps and my knowledge of flooding, and then where it does go. But it is not 100% support around the place. But I think on balance, I find it hard to vote against what's recommended there, especially with this change. I think that helps the immediate neighbours.
Thank you, Councillor. Do you have a question, Councillor Sanders?
I actually do. Just a procedural question. Usually when we add something to a motion, we'd be voting on an amendment. Here, look, I'm absolutely supporting of this one. Are we okay to vote this way without putting the amendment up first and voting on it? Vice CEO?
It is part of the recommendation. The change is part of the recommendation.
Flag the amendment.
Okay, so we're all right? Okay, thank you. Just clarifying that we get it right.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Sanders. Anyone wishing to talk again? A question from Councillor Hayes?
Through the chair to the general manager, could you, on the diagram that was put up, indicate where the buffer, the changed buffer, would apply? Is it the entire outer perimeter, or is it just some areas?
So the buffer on that map there is to the east and the north, is where it applies.
Further question?
Could I just add to that? Sorry, Councillor Hay. Yeah, to the west is rural residential already. So yeah, it's only bordering on agricultural land.
Further question. With the increase of the buffer from 10 to 20 metres, does that then impact on the size of each lot? Given that it's a covenant, I think.
Thank you for the question. No, it doesn't. We checked with our plumbing people to make sure that the buffer area could be used in some regard for wastewater disposal. So that was what I was worried about, that if we increase the buffer, then you had to have wastewater irrigation areas and a house. That may have affected lot size, but they can be used and in co-location, and that's indicated in the amended condition.
And final question, the community has raised concerns about the buffer size. If we can increase the buffer to 20, what would prevent us from increasing the buffer to 30 metres?
And if I can add to that question, if I may.
No, we'll just take one at a time. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Moriarty.
So we look at this, it's under one of our codes for general development provisions in regard to reverse amenity. So the idea of the buffer is to protect the landowners that are operating, in this case, the rural activity, from basically complaints from residential or sensitive users next door. So it's a matter of identifying what is considered appropriate to provide a reasonable buffer between those two sites. So there's no, under our planning scheme, there's no specific width provided, because it really depends on what that use might be next door. It might be grazing, which does not require a great deal of buffer. It might be high intensity agriculture, which needs a larger buffer. So it really comes down to what council would consider as being an acceptable buffer to provide I suppose, a demarcation between the two uses so they can coexist into the future.
Councillor Moriarty.
My understanding is that the buffer zone between rural and residential land should actually be 40 metres, and that's a state planning requirement. So why are we saying that 20 metres is sufficient?
I think the document you're referring to dates to about 1997 and is no longer current. When we prepare planning schemes, we have to address state interest, and that includes state planning policies, and that's the reason we have the reverse amending provisions in the planning scheme, which are really outbase orientated. So rather than having a set figure, irrespective of what the uses might be next door, we need to look at and say, well, what are the uses next door? What are the sensitive uses? What is an appropriate buffer? And so, we have more flexibility in determining that. And that could be less, it could be more.
So there's nothing stopping us going to 30 metres?
It comes down to what is considered reasonable and relevant.
So at the risk of sounding like a broken record, and I won't bore everyone with the diatribe that I went on with for the Canungra development, but my concern is exactly the same, and I'll just reiterate it, but in a much more brief way. So with all of these developments that are in the urban zone, within walkable distance, cyclable distance of our towns, why are we not conditioning active transport networks, and why are we not having those as part of our condition, at least contributing to the cost to minimise the future costs for council, rather than just approving the developments? And one especially this size, I mean, we're looking at 70-something lots, that's a lot of people, undoubtedly be young families and kids when you get to school, so on and so forth. It's only, I think, maybe 2 kilometres from Kalbar. It's not a massive distance, and if we're trying to enjoy, active transport's what we're on about, and what everyone wants in our communities, why aren't we including those things?
That's a question, councillor.
Yeah. I'll direct to the assessing officer.
Through the chair, it's, I suppose, trunk infrastructure. So footpaths are trunk infrastructure connecting developments. Trunk infrastructure is planned according to a desired standard of service. Desired standard of service, 4-foot paths is associated with a type of road being urban roads. So the issue is that we have rural residential areas close to towns. So unless the desired standard of services say something different about that, then it's essentially not trunk infrastructure. The Act allows us to charge extra payment for infrastructure that we deem might be required, but it specifically rules out rural residential land. So that the technical planning.
Unless
planning
it's
Act.
in an urban zone.
If it's in an urban zone, it's trunk infrastructure and it can be applied.
Question.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to make a quick little statement. I looked at these this type of development.
Sorry, Councillor Sanders, before you do, I'll come back to that then if I may. Is there anyone wishing to talk? If we've expired questions, although it can be ongoing, there may be another one come up, but is there if there's no questions at the moment, is there anyone wishing? Okay. Councillor.
Can it please be further explained why 30 metres is not reasonable? Like, what kind of is it creating a further impact on the lots, or is it, can it be reasonable?
There's no building envelopes identified, so that's not going to be a concern, I wouldn't think.
To clarify, the recommendation from officers is a 10-metre buffer. So the 20-metre buffer is on the recommendation of the moving councillor.
I actually have a question for the General Manager. Just in, if you could clarify the 1997 report, and you're suggesting that the local government authority has an interpretation right, but superseding is that is the state. Has this council confirmed whether or not that report still stand? Can they confirm today with authority that that report has been superseded, and what has it been superseded with, or does that report still stand?
My understanding is that it does not. The state planning policies, the latest edition is 2017, which does not have those provisions in it.
So what is provided in there? Again, I'm sorry if you're going over old ground, but exactly what's provided?
Yeah. I'd have to take that question on notice, unless Rowena, you can comment to that.
Through the chair, it is a more performance-based planning policy. So it doesn't have it has a sort of a range of setbacks, but it's very much more performance-based. Through the chair, it is noted that the planning scheme has an overlay code dealing with an agricultural buffer, and that talks about sensitive uses, and it should be noted that the dwelling houses aren't actually identified as sensitive uses in this planning scheme for this particular site, so we're actually going over and above what the planning scheme requires.
Is there any further questions? Councillor McInnes?
Yes, Mayor, if I could, through the CEO to the GM, when we approve chicken sheds around the place, we insist there being, and I'm referring to the buffers here, but the tree buffers be in a layered position where we have three different types of layers. Will that be required here on this buffer zone?
So in the wording of your amended motion or amended condition, it actually refers to a definition within the planning scheme, which dictates how the landscaping will occur, and that allows for the layering and the like.
Okay.
Councillor Hay?
I don't have a question, but I'd like to foreshadow an amended motion.
Is everyone happy to hear that amendment?
Amendment motion or
Amendment to the motion.
Or amendment.
Amendment to the motion.
Okay, can we hear them?
I'd like to amend paragraph 4, condition 29, that the minimum planted width be increased for the buffer to 30 metres, given that the proposed covenant does not impact on the overall lot size per lot. I think I'd rather err on the side of caution and provide a 30-metre buffer. Who's to say that the adjoining agricultural properties won't get it into their mind to suddenly want to farm organic chickpeas or something, and then that would be a sensitive use, and we just really need to be careful here that we're not making a rod for our own back in the future.
I refer to governance. Have we got a vote on amendment of an amendment?
Yeah, through you, Chair, there's only one motion on the table, so there was a recommendation from the officers. Councillor
Made the amendment.
he proposed a motion that was different to the officer's recommendation, so we only have one motion on the floor now. There's a proposed amendment that has to be determined first and then go back to the motion.
Okay. So you're proposing that amendment as a motion.
Yes, Chair.
Can I have a seconder to that amendment, to that motion? Councillor Cryer. Do you wish to talk further to the motion, Councillor Hay?
No, I think it's fairly self-explanatory, given the location of this property and when we get further into the discussions for and against, I have some other issues to raise, but at the moment we're just dealing with the buffer. So we'll just deal with that one first. I think 30 metres would be more acceptable given the location of the property and given that the officer stated that this is more, I think you said performance-based rather than prescriptive, yes?
Through the chair, I was referring to the state planning policy. Yeah.
Question, if I may.
We've got a seconder to the talking to the motion. Yes, Councillor Sanders, you got a question?
But just if for clarification for me, please. What we're saying now is that we're going to make people have to have a buffer, cannot build on it, must plant vegetation. Is that just clarify that for me, please? Because are we making an onerous thing for the owners of the land? Is that what we're doing? Can I just check?
That was in the original motion, because the buffer is going to be by responsibility and buyer, but through the CEO to the GM. Is that correct?
So it's
The responsibility of the buffer.
is with the developer to prepare it, then for the owner to maintain it ad infinitum.
So it's a condition, and so specifically the condition is that it retains as a buffer zone that can never be built on.
Yeah, so are we actually saying to these people that they can't use their land in some way, shape or form in the future?
That is correct. So the covenant would mean that it would be maintained as a landscape buffer. So most of the lots here are about 80 metres deep, to give you some context, and they need a 10 metre setback from the front, and then you'd have 30 metres from the back, so that they would be left with about 40 metres for house, sheds, pools, anything like that.
So just for clarification, we're actually changing a condition and making it more onerous on the new owners that won't be able to do things in that buffer zone and will have to maintain it. I thought what we're trying to do as councillors is to have less impact on the people who are going to own these blocks, not more impact. And this seems like we're doing the opposite of what we want to do. Is that not correct? Can someone point me in the right direction here?
The buffer's designed to protect the rural land, not the residents, I believe. No, what you think? The buffer's there to protect the rural land, not to protect the residents.
I think
so it's opposite.
Well, I think there's some confusion all around, because this buffer zone, and one of the aspects of it is for agriculture, in terms of it's the end of the line, councillor, and it's right on the boundary of zone to rural use. The agricultural activity that is conducted in there from time to time is chemical spraying. So one of the components of having the buffer is to prevent drift into the residential zones. But I refer to the GM to specifically give a full explanation, if you would, of the buffer, the purposes of the buffer, for clarification here.
So the buffer is designed to allow two potentially adverse land uses to operate without incident. So it is really about, as was just said, it's really about protecting the rural industry so that it can continue to operate as it would normally, without causing problems to the residents, who would then be, in the future complaining about or requesting restrictions on those rural uses.
Could I just add that if the buffer fenced buffer is the responsibility of the developer, then it would be patently clear to any potential purchaser that that buffer existed and what they were buying was what they would see beyond the fenced area. So it wouldn't come as a surprise to any potential purchaser that there was a covenant there and that they couldn't use that particular portion of the land. So I don't see that having a 30-metre buffer would be detrimental to the sale value of those particular properties. That's just my opinion. I think if anything that would enhance the sale value and the attractive nature of those properties if they did have a 30-metre buffer. Thank you.
Anyone wishing to talk against the amendment? Councillor McGuinness?
Yes, Mayor, and yeah, I think by going 30 metres out of 80 metres, that's almost half of the block that you cannot build on. You can't, without reconfiguring the lots from the development point of view. I don't think it is very attractive unless people wanted a section of trees, and it's going to be fairly thick trees to actually, this buffer zone, so it's not trees that the people particularly want there. It'll be everyone's to their own, but I would think it takes away from the area. I thought 20 metres was reasonable, a quarter of it there, but where do you stop? Do we take 60-metre buffer and then you give them a 1,000 square metres left there, but I thought 20 metres was reasonable enough to have a buffer.
Anyone wishing to talk for the motion? I'll let you sum up, Councillor Hay.
Thank you, Chair. I think if the developer had been less looking for the maximum yield and had settled for a 4,000 square metre minimum lot size, it wouldn't matter if we had a 30-metre buffer because there would be more land to play with. So that's what I'll be discussing when we get to the motion proper further along the line. So I think that not being able to accommodate, as Councillor McGuinness has suggested, a 30-metre buffer is primarily dictated by the smaller than anticipated lot sizes.
Talk against the motion?
I'll talk against if that's okay.
Have you spoken against the motion earlier today?
Maybe.
It's getting a long motion, okay.
It's been a long day, everybody. Sorry, so sorry. I just wanted to say I think everybody's been heard. The submitters have been heard. The applicant's been heard. We've done lots of talking. The staff have, absolutely gone out of their way to get the best outcome they can. I won't support the motion to go to the 30 metres. I'll support the motion to go to the 20. The reason being is I don't see that placing more onerous restrictions on people when they buy their block of land. They want to buy their block of land. They want to do things that they want to do. They want to live, if they need a truck shed or whatever, I don't know, that they should be able to do it. But by doing this, we're putting restrictions on people when they purchase land in the lovely Scenic Rim, and I think we've got enough protections for both sides to allow the farmers to continue farming and the people to purchase their properties and live in peace. So I'm not supporting this one. Thank you.
For the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. I think we've had plenty of discussion about it, but I feel it should be the position of this council to support as much as we can to make this development more palatable, a more livable development for all, just not the people who are moving into the development, but people surrounding it, and more palatable to the community. And if we can increase the buffer, I think that's a positive thing, as increasing the lot sizes would also add to that as well.
Thank you. Anyone against the motion? Who expired? On that basis, I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? And those against? Motion defeated, and call for a division. those in favour of Division 1, 2 and 3, against the Mayor, 4, 5 and 6. Motion lost. So we now go back to the original recommendation. Original motion, my apologies. Sorry? I previously requested if there was someone wanted to talk against the motion, and during that process, Councillor Hay proposed an amendment. So I'll put it back to the floor. Is there anyone wishing to talk against this motion?
Yeah, why not, Mr. Mayor? I'll talk against it as well, because maybe we should go back to the 10 metres. I'll just throw that little discussion point in there.
Yeah, I'll let. Okay, if everyone could take a moment, and we'll move on from there. Look, I am actually. If there's no one looking to talk against the motion, I actually am going to talk against the motion today for a couple of reasons. Specifically, I won't be supporting it on the basis that we need to just start drawing the line in the sand, that this is the end of the line in the of the zoning, and with the planning scheme under code accessible, and I know there's impact accessible, calls for 4,000 square metres. So we are on every measure, whether it be through our community plan, through our corporate plan, through the planning scheme, we're looking to maintain a rural lifestyle and a vision and a way of life. I don't believe that this quite stacks up to it with putting 70 lots into very much what's mostly a floodplain. It doesn't stack up in my mind. If it is at 4,000 square metres, then that is worthwhile considering. The land will, in my opinion, won't be devalued. There's nothing that the property developer will lose out on this. I also have a major problem with the buffer zone. I have put the question to the officers today and was not given a clear answer as to what the state override is into this regard. We're dealing with a very tricky situation in terms of agricultural activities. Living in this day and age, this is a council that doesn't need blood in its hands. In terms of every member, or nearly every member around this table, I'm very confident, has had exposure and a good understanding to agricultural chemicals and their use. We've learned a lot over the many last decades. And that is just to name a couple of major points why I will not be supporting the recommendation.
I'd like to speak against the motion as well, if I may.
Well, could we have someone please speak for the motion? I'm sorry, councillor. No, that's expired. If we're going the for and against, we're now, if there's no one wishing to speak to further for, we've now expired on both the for and against, and I'll be now.
I can speak quickly, just so the man has the opportunity to speak. On balance, this application, I think, meets our planning scheme. I think by restricting it today, the applicant will just go to the courts and have it decided, and probably move back to maybe a 10 metre or no buffer, which will be out of our hands to put forward. Our planning scheme is performance based. It's written in our planning scheme as performance based, and it's been assessed against that standard. So that's what the judge will sit there and judge this application on, of a performance basis, and they've proven through our planning system that it can be approved under them circumstances. So we'll lose any rights to condition this application. and potentially make a worse case for our community. So in that case, I'm going to approve. I'll be supporting the motion.
Thank you, councillor. Wishing to talk against?
Thank you, Chair. I think one thing that hasn't been addressed is, had this been code accessible, the minimum lot size of 4,000 square metres would have stood. That's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong. But because it's impact accessible, we've now got up to 78 lots, of which 5/6 do not meet the minimum 4,000 square metre lot size. 5/6. I could support this if there were only a couple that were below 4,000 square metres, but when you've only got 1/6 of the total of 78 lots that meet the intent of the planning scheme, and let's not forget the intent. The intent was, in this area, they would be 4,000 square metres minimum. When you've only got 1/6 of the lots that do meet that requirement, I think that this is a totally inappropriate development, and if we're going to have a court case, I say bring it on.
Anyone wishing to talk in favour of the motion? Councillor McGuinness, do you wish to sum up?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. As I said earlier, this is a contentious issue. It's not, there's quite a number of views in the Calbar area on for and against it, and I accept the immediate neighbours, the impact that will have on them, but it is zoned rural residential. As I said earlier, there are quite a number of 3,000 square metre blocks that we have approved already in the region in rural residential, and they seem to be working fairly well. As I may not have said, Lockyer down to 2,000 square metres, which I think is a bit over the top, and it all depends on soil type. And can the soil take that? And I take it the experts, they've actually agreed that it can handle that. I don't agree with what the Mayor said earlier on there is a floodplain there, but not a big percentage of the area is a floodplain. To say that it was a big percentage of the block is not quite correct. It's probably about a quarter of the area, and that will be in a nature strip, and I think that'll be good for the whole community by having that planted out into trees, and and there's no way you could build houses on that, but it'll be a good thing for all the nearby residents as well. So if it's, and I'm assuming it will be done properly and done to council specification. So on balance, it's not an easy one, but I support that, and with the buffer zone being at 20 metres, I believe that's in the interests of all around there. As I said earlier, any more than 20 metres, I think it impacts on those lots quite considerably, and they'd be down to 2,000 square metres, some of the blocks, if you went much more than that. So I recommend the motion to the meeting.
Thank you, councillor. I'll now put it to the floor. Those in favour of the recommendation? Those against? Motion defeated. I assume they'll be calling for a division. That's correct.
Sorry. Would be a good idea to take a break, because I just want to have a look, and we haven't been given any reasons by anyone.
All right. If we could, given the time, we're approaching 11 o'clock, we may take a quick break and come back on the quarter hour, potentially. So I will draw it to, what do we say? Adjourned. So
do we go on like the quarter hour?
I'll call it on the, we'll now adjourn the meeting. Thank you. My apologies. Thank you. We'll now resume the meeting and I'll call upon Councillor Moriarty to introduce a procedural motion.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move that in accordance with Standing Orders 21.1, item 11.7 lie on the table so that officers can provide sufficient advice on the reasons for refusal and the matter be returned for consideration before the closure of this meeting.
Thank you. I now put that motion to the floor. Those in favour? Motion carried unanimously. We'll now proceed with the rest of the meeting, and call upon Councillor Hay to introduce item 11.8.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to introduce item 11.8, Policy Review Project, Recording Device Council Policy. I'll just have to I've had to close down and reopen, so just bear with me for a moment till I get to the right page. This item, I'll read the motion and then I'll speak to it. The motion is that Council adopt the Recording Device Operation and Management Council Policy, number 1. Number 2, Council note the adoption of the body-worn camera corporate procedure. And 3, Council rescind the Council Policy CM 03.24 CP body-worn camera policy. I take the report as read.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder to the motion? Councillor Moriarty. Councillor Hay, do you want to talk to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Chair. The Policy Review Project sought to update, amend and create corporate documents aligned with the progression of the Scenic Rim Regional Council. Council are required to notify the public of their collection, use, storage and disclosure of personal information, including that captured through recording devices. Council already had a policy in relation to body-worn cameras. However, with the advancement and use of additional technology, it's become necessary to extend this policy to include all recording devices used throughout the organisation. In line with Council's corporate document framework, the recommendation is to rescind the existing policy and replace it with the newly created Recording Device Operation and Management Council policy. Further to this, the existing body-worn camera corporate procedure has also undergone a significant review with amendments provided in this report. And importantly, the creation of these documents will satisfy the requirements associated with the Information Privacy Act 2009, and once adopted, further training will be conducted to ensure adherence. I would add that this applies to council staff. It does not apply to councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone wishing to talk against the motion? I think it's pretty straightforward. Did you wish to add anything further, Councillor Hay?
Only that it's unfortunate that our society has got to the point where it's necessary to have these recording devices utilised for future use should it be needed. But that's the way we are and that's the world we live in. So unfortunately, we've had to adapt to that by changing the policy and procedure.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour of the motion? Unanimous. Motion carried. Thank you. I now call upon Councillor Chalk to introduce item 11.9. Is that correct?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yesterday I'll introduce report 11.9, policy review project, procurement policy review. I'll take the report as being read by all members, and I'll move a motion that council adopt the council policy, procurement and contract management, CP 00053. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Can we have a seconder to the motion? Councillor Hay. What in terms of, I think there's quite an important policy review, and there's been known that there has been some procurement issues in the past, so maybe an overview of the review and the policy from the manager would be appreciated for the members here today, as well as the public.
Thanks, you, Mayor. I'll refer to Council's Coordinator, Procurement and Contracts Admin, Heike, to provide some high-level overview of the policy.
True, Chair. Thank you. Yes, you are correct. There is a extensive procurement improvement project in place, and the policy is basically part one of the submission. Part of this is also reviewing all the procedures, guidelines, templates, contracts, suite, and so on, which is a multi-year project that a project plan has been provided to the executive team.
Thank you.
I can add, Mr. Mayor, that some of the some other points in that is it is a legislative requirement to review Council's procurement policy annually. The policy is based primarily on what's been provided for the Queensland Government Regulation Act 2012. The revised policy, as pointed out by the Coordinator, Procurement, aims to enhance transparency, efficiency, accountability in Council's procurement processes, and the intent of the policy is to ensure compliance, aligning it with current laws and regulations to mitigate risks and promote ethical practices, enhance transparency by fostering an open procurement process that encourages public trust and engagement, streamline processes by simplifying procedures to facilitate timely decision-making and improved resource allocation, and also support local businesses through encouraging participation from suppliers and service providers to strengthen the local economy.
Thank you for that. Anyone wishing to talk against the motion? Did you want to sum up?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I thank the manager, general manager, and the manager for their comments. This has been a body of work that was identified a few years ago, and it's good to see that it's come forward now in this new policy, and I think it will strengthen the council's procurement practices, which is a good thing. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. I put it to the floor. Those in favour of the motion? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you. Turn to item 11.10, call upon Councillor McGuinness.
Thanks, Mayor. Introduce 11.10, proposed 2025 ordinary meeting schedule. I take it everyone's read that. We try to be consistent in having our ordinary meetings on the fourth Wednesday of each month, and sometimes it has to move because of public holidays or whatever, but the schedule is set out there, and I might read that just so we always being held of a Wednesday. The recommendation is that Council adopt the following dates for ordinary meetings to be held in 2025, with the meetings commence at 9 a.m. And I said all of a Wednesday on the 29th of January, 26th of February, 26th of March, all 2025 naturally, 30th of April, 28th of May, 25th of June, 23rd of July, 27th of August, 24th of September, 29th of October, 26th of November and 10th of December. And second part to the motion is that Council acknowledge that ordinary meetings scheduled for 2025 will be held in the Council Chambers, 82 Brisbane Street, Beaudesert. So I so move, Mayor. As I said, I take it everyone has read that, but that's basically just so it's there for everyone to see, and we can all lock it in our diaries.
Thank you, Councillor. Seconded to the motion, Councillor Sanders. Yeah, probably doesn't require any further discussion. Anyone against the motion? I put it to the floor. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillor Chalk to introduce item 11. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, today I'll introduce report 1111, the Queensland Audit Office publications relevant to council. This is, of course, fall under my economic development portfolio.
Ordinaries.
What does my economic development portfolio? Listed on top of you, Mr CEO. Anyway. I'll quickly, there's a few dot points I've taken down just to explain a few things. So the purpose was to highlight to council recent Queensland Audit Office publications that are relevant to council. The 2024 status of the Auditor General's recommendations is the 4th report to Parliament on the status of the Auditor General's performance audit recommendations. 84 entities were asked to self-assess their progress in implementing 603 performance audit recommendations from 40 QAO reports tabled in Parliament between 2015-16 and 22-23. Scenic Rim Regional Council is referenced twice, page 15, figure 2I, showing that council has one outstanding recommendation, and page 143 summarising this outstanding item as being from the QAO report 6 2021-22 regulating. Scenic Rim Regional Council have self-assessed as partially completed with the due date of 30th of June 2025. I'll just move the following motion, Mr Mayor, that council receive the QAO publication 2024 status of Auditor General's recommendations report 1 2024 to 2025 for their information.
Thank you. Seconded to the motion. Councillor Moriarty. Do you wish to talk to your motion, Councillor Chalk?
No, I don't think so, Mr Mayor.
All right, anyone wishing to talk against? I put it to the floor. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. I move on to item 1112 and call upon Councillor Sanders.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, councillors. The 11.12 Council Monthly Financial Report for September 2024. I'd like to introduce the report 11.12 Council Monthly Financial Reports for September 2024. I take the report as read. All questions have been answered by staff. I move the motion that option 1, that Council note the unaudited financial statements for the period ended 30th of September 2024 for the financial year 2024 to 2025.
Thank you. Seconded to the motion. Councillor Moriarty. Anyone, Councillor Sanders, you'd like to talk to?
Yes, if I may, Mr Mayor. I just wanted, I know that everybody will have read through these reports and spent a lot of time looking over them, but I just thought I'd bring forward a few pointers or notes. Carry forward budget from last financial year have been included in this report. The operating surplus of $1.9 million is higher than budgeted expectations. The revenue from fees and charges of $1.027 million is positive due to high activity in the plumbing certification and other building and property related areas. Our cash is $3.1 million higher than budgeted expectations at $60 million, but nearly $30 million of this is committed funds such as employee provisions, bonds and other committed funds, so we can't go and spend all of that.
Thank you, Councillor. Any questions in relation to the September report? Anyone wishing to talk against the motion? Did you have a question, Councillor?
Yeah, or a comment probably that we, and it should be visible to everyone as it is the reports were, as usual, very well done, but it is getting some relevance now after a quarter of the year that, I for one am not, don't place a lot of emphasis on just 1 month's budget, but maybe the General Manager of Finance might, like to explain some other items as well, but it is looking fairly good and, and it has some more relevance now than what it has in the last couple of months.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor. I think Councillor Sanders has surmised it quite well, but on your point that the budget is tracking, and I don't certainly want to put a mocker on it with the works being able to be delivered in a timely manner. We're seeing expenditure in line with forecasted budgets. So so far in terms of that, we are tracking well. And as Councillor Hay indicated, the additional sort of metrics there, but the, hope as we progress through the financial year, those items will may smooth out, but it is positive to note that with the increased activity associated with planning and development, that is adding largely to council's retained earnings. We don't expect that we don't expect to raise and increase the budget too high in order to try and to budget for it moderately. So it is a positive in that regards.
Thank you. Officer, anyone wishing to talk against the motion? Councillor Sanders, did you want to talk to your motion further?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. All right. Now turn to Councillor Chalk to introduce item 11.13.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Today I'll introduce report 1113. This is Council's monthly financial report for June 2024, final, and audited financial statements for the year ending 30th of June 2024. I'll begin by just moving a motion that Council receive that one, Council receive the unaudited financial statements, monthly financial report June 2024 final for the financial year 2023-2024, and two, Council receive the audited financial statements for the year ending 30th of June 2024.
Thank you. Seconded to the motion. Councillor Sanders. Councillor Chalk, would you like to talk further to your motion?
Yeah, just probably through the CEO to the General Manager, if I could get him to give a brief outline of this report, please.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor, you'd recall that we did provide the interim June monthly accounts earlier in the year. However, given the fact that they were at that time interim, we've now since finalised the end of year audit process, and as such, there's a requirement to bring the finals of those. Some of the significant changes that are varied from the interim June accounts to the last accounts were obviously recognitions of the financial assistance grant not being received until after the financial year, so that had to be adjusted. Also, some of the works relating to our disaster-related emergent works, Council did receive some reimbursements after 30 June that required the accruing back to pre-30 June. So in part, there's some of the significant changes that was from the interim to that. Also, in addition to the resolution, there was Council to receive the audited financial statements for the year ended 30th of June 2024. From a Council perspective, the audited financial statements have been received and deemed as being unqualified, which means that's a positive in that regards, that they're a true representation, and with the external auditors through the Queensland Audit Office assessing Council's financial positions, statements and other processes, that's effectively a green light on those last years. If there's anything in particular, Mr. Mayor, otherwise, yeah, certainly a good result for Council to receive the unqualified statements.
I guess another way you could say it is if assuming the grants and the emergency works funding were received within the period, a normalised figure would have seen a surplus.
That's correct. We did budget for those to come in, but unfortunately they didn't receive until later.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to talk against the motion? I've already, but sorry. I'll let you. You've wished to sum up.
Yeah, I'll just have a quick sum up. Yeah, look, council's financials gets audited in a million different ways sometimes. It's very closely done by a few different bodies, which is a good thing, and we certainly keep an eye on that. The budget that we start a year with generally is not the budget we finish the year with, because there's so many grants and things that come in at different times, and it's certainly a challenge for the council to keep the heads on that. And as the Mayor alluded to, if you normalise them, you can see sort of a true position. But when you're dealing with different entities at different levels of government who pay things in different times, it's often really difficult. So it's good to get the auditor reports to make sure that everything's above board and going in a good direction. So I congratulate the council staff for all their hard work, and yeah, I'll put the report for the council for adoption. Thanks you.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And turn to Councillor Hay to introduce item 11.14.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to introduce agenda item 11.14, Audit and Risk Committee Annual Report 2023 to 2024, and I present this annual report in my role as a member of the Audit and Risk Committee. Before I read the motion, I'll just explain the purpose of the annual report, which is to reaffirm the council the purpose, role and objectives of the Audit and Risk Committee, to outline the outcomes achieved by the committee, and to provide council with information on future activities of the Audit and Risk Committee. I'd like to move the motion that council note the Audit and Risk Committee Annual Report 2023 to 2024.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone wishing to second that? Councillor Sanders. Councillor Hay, would you like to talk to your report? To your motion, sorry.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to add that the Audit and Risk Committee has established an ongoing practice of producing an annual report that summarises the activities and outcomes of the committee in the financial year, and that the Audit and Risk Committee is made up of an external chair, another external member and 2 councillors. All the members have provided input and feedback on this report, and the report is presented to provide assurance to the public regarding the effective operation of the Audit and Risk Committee as a key part of the governance framework of council. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to talk against the motion? I put it to the floor. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And call upon Councillor Hay to now introduce item 11.15. They're not ready.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce item 11.15, Report to Council of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting held on the 22nd of August 2024, and I present this report in my capacity as a member of the Audit and Risk Committee. I'd like to move the motion that Council note the report to Council on the Audit and Risk Committee meeting held on the 22nd of August 2024, and I'll speak further to that after seconding.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder to the motion? Councillor Moriarty. Councillor Hay, you wish to talk to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Chair. In accordance with the local government regulations, a report is presented after each meeting to summarise the discussions and recommendations. The August meeting covered the usual wide range of topics, with some additional focus on the draft financial statements. Other key topics discussed in the meeting included the progress on the procurement improvements, which we've just discussed previously, information services and technology, an internal audit report on the use of credit cards, an overview of council's significant projects, and an update on the organisation culture development program. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Is anyone wishing to talk against the motion? Councillor Hay, anything further? I put it to the floor. Those in favour of the motion? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Now turn to item 11.16. Call upon councillor Moriarty.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to introduce item 11.16, Information and Communication Technology Strategic Plan 2024 to 2028. I take the item as read, and I'll move the motion as presented that council adopt the Information and Communication Technology Strategic Plan 2024 to 2028.
Thank you. A seconder to the motion. Councillor Cryer. Councillor Moriarty, would you like to now talk to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to acknowledge and thank the council's, the GM first of all, for providing some talking points, and for the council staff who've been involved in developing this policy long overdue. And there's a significant investment going into this project, which will greatly modernise and enhance and bring council well and truly into the digital age. The plan sets a vision and roadmap to deliver modern digital services. The community will benefit with more access to services online and easier access to council information. Council operations will become more efficient with up-to-date technology. The risk of cybersecurity threats will be reduced, better protecting ratepayer information. Investment in the modernisation of council's ICT is well overdue. The plan will ensure ICT expenditure is managed in a structured and sustainable way. And as outlined in the report and included in the strategy, the proposed deliverables will be included in the relevant budget year deliberations so as to ascertain how the funding of the projects overlay with the overall budgetary requirements. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Anyone wishing to talk against the motion? Do you wish to sum it up further?
No, I don't think so, Mayor. Thank you.
All right. Well, I will put it to the floor. Those in favour? That carried unanimously. And that draws us back to the matter that we have on the table. So we will now seek an adjournment and we'll return on the quarter hour. Thank you. Thank you and welcome back. We'll now resume the meeting and continuation of item 11.7, and we'll now call upon Councillor Moriarty.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move the motion for item 11.7. I move the following reason for refusal in relation to item 11.7. 1. Council receive and note the report titled RAL 23/046 Development Permit for Reconfiguring of a Lot 3 into 78 rural lots at 163 Teviotville Road, Calbar.
Rural residential lots.
Sorry, I apologise. Rural residential lots at 163 Teviotville Road, Calbar. Lots 1, 2 and 5 RP 20983. And 2, Council not approve development application RAL 23/046 for the reasons presented. A, the proposal is inconsistent with the strategic outcomes for acreage areas in the strategic framework of the Scenic Rim Planning Scheme 2020 because 1, it proposes lot sizes in the rural residential zone that do not maintain a low density residential character, and 2, it is likely to constrain the operation of surrounding rural activities in adjoining rural areas. B, the proposal is inconsistent with the purpose and overall outcomes of rural residential zone code because 1, the lot design does not display a very low density configuration and semi-rural character. 2, the proposal does not result in a rural residential built form, and 3, the lot design does not comply with the minimum lot size and design intended for the rural residential zone. C, the proposal is inconsistent with the performance outcome PO4 of the rural residential zone code because it does not comply with the minimum lot size and design requirements and doesn't facilitate low density residential living on large lots. D, the proposal is inconsistent with the purpose and overall outcomes of reconfiguring a lot code because it does not result in a lot design that facilitates the intended character, density and built form outcomes of the zone. E, the proposal is inconsistent with the performance outcome PO7 of the reconfiguring of a lot code as a resulting development impedes on the operation of the adjoining existing agricultural uses. F, the proposal is inconsistent with performance outcome PO11 of the reconfiguring of a lot code as the reconfiguring of a lot results in lots that do not achieve character and built form outcomes applicable to the relevant zone. And G, the proposal is inconsistent with the purpose and overall outcomes of the Agricultural Land Overlay Code because it results in the potential diminished agricultural activity of significant agricultural land and the potential for conflict between agricultural and other uses.
Seconder for the motion, Councillor Hay. Thank you. Do you wish to talk to your motion, Councillor Moriarty?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Anyone wish to talk against? I put the motion to the floor. Those in favour? Those against? Call for a division. In favour, in favour, division 1, 2, 3, Mayor and 6. Against were division 4 and 5. Everyone, that draws to the end of today's meeting. Sorry?
Duncan, I knew I was missing someone. Yeah.
Sorry, Councillor. I'll now draw the meeting to a close at 12:35 p.m. Thank you very much.